I believe that we are born with an innate desire that we are meant to fulfill in our lifetime. This innate desire is what I like to call the core purpose. It's the thing that we were put on this planet to do. As we go through our life and grow up, our core purpose gets covered up. This is because we begin to be influenced by others. Our parents want us to do well in school, so all of a sudden that's placed on top. Social media wants us to have cars and watches and all this expensive stuff that gets placed on top. So all of these layers get placed on top of the thing we're actually meant to do. And this means we end up chasing things that we weren't supposed to do. In order for us to get into that core, we must go through those layers and reach the core. So we have to dissolve each layer one by one and then get to the core. I'd like to start with materialistic desires, as I think those are the easiest ones to get rid of, even though they're not easy, but I find them easier to get rid of at the start and then focus on what you actually want to do. So let me give you an example, right? Let's say I want a Ferrari. So where did I get this desire for a Ferrari? Well, I saw a TikTok. Why do I want the Ferrari? I think it looks cool. I think it'll give me love and validation. Do people actually look at who's driving a Ferrari? No, not really. They're usually just looking at the Ferrari. They're not looking at the driver. Should I be working my ass off because I saw a TikTok? Probably not. Just like that, desire gone. If you use this sort of framework where you ask where you got the desire, why you want it, and if it's logical, like why, then you're able to dissolve the materialistic desires pretty easily. If you find this framework doesn't work, then maybe you actually do want the thing. But most of the time I find this is what works for me to get rid of desires for things I don't actually need. Now that the materialistic desires are out of the way, we can move on to the hard part of fulfilling the purpose and reaching our core desire. I must say though that when we are dissolving materialistic desires, when we are dissolving them, it is important that we're not taking in as much content. If we are taking in content, we're going to keep seeing the new coolest gadget or all these materialistic things. We have to limit our consumption because that's the only way we're going to be able to get down to our core desire before it gets layers placed on top of it. So we have to keep the layers as is and just move down to the core. If we keep adding layers on top, we're probably never going to get there. We have to limit our consumption. The reason why we got rid of the materialistic desires earlier is because it opens up more career opportunities for you because you're willing to take lower paying jobs that will fulfill you more because you don't have your mind on wanting to buy all those expensive things. Yeah, that's why you want to get rid of the materialistic desires first. Now, as a man, we must fulfill our purpose. What is our reason for being? Why do we get up every morning? Finding your purpose is, I like to think of it as it involves a task that you find gets you into a flow state quite easily compared to others. For me, I find that when I'm writing, I'm able to focus very quickly. But for others, it might be they might be able to get into a flow state easily when speaking, when playing music, when providing help for others. It can be a multitude of things. Then once you've got that skill, that task that you're able to do, I want you to think of something you're passionate about, some goal you're passionate about filling with that skill. So for me, it'd be like, I want to help other people to become better versions of themselves, and I'll do it by using my writing skills. That would be what I would have. But yours may be different. You want to think of something that you're passionate about, some problem that could be fulfilled with whatever skill you have. Then from there, you can think of occupations that would involve that skill and that goal that you're trying to fulfill. And then you must go and do it. If you'll find pretty quickly if the occupation's not for you, you'll know pretty quickly, because you won't feel fulfilled doing the work. But if the occupation is for you, you'll just do it. And you'll keep doing it until it becomes unfulfilling and boring. When you're doing this purpose finding, I'd suggest that you close out every distraction you can and you just focus on what you're thinking about. So I'd suggest journaling if you think that would help you. In most cases, it probably will, because it helps to get your ideas on paper and journal out what you're thinking at the current moment. It means you can come back to it as well later, and you'll know why you're doing what you're doing. It makes it easier when you get to that next layer of purpose. Because purpose is sort of like an onion. There's layers to it. Each layer will be dissolved before you reach the core. Right now, I want to do YouTube, right? But eventually, I might find that I don't enjoy YouTube anymore, and it becomes unfulfilling, and I don't enjoy it anymore. It's at that point that I'll move on to the next occupation, the next job. It could be writing a book. It could be a multitude of things, because I want to do writing. So it would be something involving writing, most likely. I know that eventually this layer will dissolve, but I also know that right now, I love making YouTube videos. So I just keep making YouTube videos. It's as simple as that. You must find the purpose in the current moment and continue working on it with as much focus as you can. Then once that layer is dissolved, you move on to the next. Each layer is supposed to be like this. You're supposed to live through every layer until it becomes unfulfilling and boring almost. We're not supposed to do the same thing for our entire life. We're not supposed to work the same job. If you start working when you're 16 and you'll work the same job until your retirement, you're going to be working the same job for 50 years of your life. Think about it that way. How are we supposed to get it right on the first time? YouTube's probably not right for me. I pretty much know that YouTube is probably not what I was put on this planet to do, but it feels good at the moment. And I enjoy making videos, so I do it. But I know that eventually I probably won't, or I'll become unfulfilled by doing it, and I'll feel like it's a waste of time. Obviously, I'm not going to get it right on the first time. I'm not going to find the occupation that I'm supposed to do on the first try. I know that in doing that, I will become more fulfilled when I change careers and keep changing careers throughout my life. I'm going to change many times throughout my life, probably. And that's just how it is. Once you've reached the end of a layer of purpose, you might not know it, but there should be some signs that can help you know if you have. Some of these signs include suddenly losing interest in whatever your project or work is. You no longer feel the same drive that you used to. Another one of these signs is that you don't feel any regret from the whole project, the whole time you did the work there. Even though you feel like it's kind of boring now, you don't regret working it. Another one of those signs is that you feel energized and ready to take on a new endeavor, a new career. You're ready for that. And then lastly, the last sign is that you feel like it would be a complete waste of your time to continue to work on this project or this job, that your time could be spent better in other places. If you have some of these signs, the chances are you've probably reached the end of the layer. But you should always ask people you trust first. Masculine people that can tell you whether it's just a phase and you're just under stress or if it's genuinely the end. Because the masculine will tell you straight up. So once you've talked to the people you've trust, if they've given you the latter answer that it is the end of the layer, it is the end of your purpose, you must move on to the next layer. You must go. Finish up the project or the job as soon as possible. Just make sure that you don't leave any loose ends, or you're not burdening on anyone when you leave. Then you must depart and focus on trying to get to the next layer. You probably have no idea what it's going to be, but you just have to depart and let it happen. So what do I mean by letting it happen? Well, you might need to get a job to hold you over for a couple days or weeks, probably a couple of weeks, because you don't know when the vision for your next purpose is going to arise. But when you are in your downtime, you must be completely open with your conscious. You can't be consuming content and distracting yourself. You have to be open so that the vision can be interpreted when it arises. This can take a long time. It can take weeks. But eventually, if you keep yourself open and you keep your conscious open and you're not distracting yourself by going on your phone, watching TV, going out with friends, you'll get a vague vision. You'll probably know what the goal you want to pursue is, like what you want to do with your career. You might not know what the occupation is for that, but you just got to figure out a way for you to fulfill that vision, that purpose. So you might get something random like, I want to educate people on the dangers of drug use or something. Just something random. It could be anything. It'll probably be something to do with your previous experiences, if I were to guess. And of course, it'll use that skill that we talked about earlier that you found at the start. So when you get this vision, you must just go for it. Figure out something you can do that'll fulfill that vision, some occupation you can do, because it can be vague very vague. So you just got to think about something you can do for it. You might not know if it'll make a living for you, but you do know that it will fulfill you and it'll make you feel like you're working at your purpose. Anyway, if you are working on that vision and you're producing meaningful work, purposeful work, you're going to find that eventually income's probably going to follow. Think of the AI developers 10 years back. Computer science is already a relatively new field. And then you've got the subdivision of AI in it. Think of the people that would be working on AI. They're not just your random person off the street. They're probably very passionate about AI. This means that they find it is their purpose. Because of this, they were producing their best work possible. They didn't know if the profits were going to be huge. They didn't know if it was going to be mainstream soon. But 10 years later, they did the work and they finally got their breakthrough when AI became a big thing with ChatGPT and all this. And now a lot of them are very rich. They weren't rich before this, obviously. They obviously were able to live, but it was after the 10 years of work on the project that they finally got their riches. So the income may not come now, but eventually it probably will if you produce good enough work. That's what we must do. We must just work on producing our best work, and eventually the money will come. So to wrap it up, think of a skill or a task that you can do that is able to get you into a flow state very easily compared to other tasks. Then, once you've figured that out, think of a goal or an objective that is special to you that you want to fulfill using that task. Then, after that, find occupations that fulfill that skill and that goal, and try them. You'll know if they don't feel right, basically from the start, but eventually you'll find one that sticks. This will be your current layer of purpose. Work on this layer of purpose for as long as it is fulfilling to you. It could be several years. Eventually, you will become unfulfilled by the prospect of working on this occupation or this project or whatever it is. And it's at this moment you'll probably be at the end of the layer, and you'll have to open yourself up to a vision which will allow you to move on to the next layer. We must remember that we can't use distractions in this. If we distract ourselves and keep intaking content, we're just going to keep adding layers on top of the core desire. So we really need to limit content consumption. But if we do all this right, eventually we'll make it down to our core. It's a very long journey. It can take several years. I myself am probably on the first layer of purpose when it comes to work. But I know that if I keep continuing down and I limit my content consumption, I will eventually make it to the core. And I have no idea what that will be. But I know that I'll make it there eventually. Anyway, I hope you found value in this video. I love you all. Like and subscribe if you'd like. Now stop consuming. and go create.